welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Leighanne and I talk about books. Today is a good day. Today is the day that we're going to be talking about my updated Stephen King collection. So I did this video for the first time in 2017 and I actually split it into two parts that time. I split it into mass market paperbacks and then my hardcovers. Well, since I did that video, my collection has grown substantially. However, even though it has grown substantially, I am going to try and fit everything into one video. So this is going to be a long video. So grab yourself a snack, a drink, whatever, and settle yourself in. As of this moment, my part 1 collection from 2017 is the most viewed video on my channel. So I have a feeling that if you're probably here right now, you probably are new to my channel. Welcome. Obviously, I talk about books. Stephen King is my favorite author, and I do talk a good bit about horror books in general. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and click the subscribe button. Although I do read various contemporaries, a tiny bit of YA, some fantasy, sci-fi, so on and so forth. I actually am a pretty wide reader as far as the genres that I read. So another thing that I do on this channel is I am currently working my way through Stephen King's works in publication order. But as I'm going through his works in publication order, I have started a video series that I'm calling King Chronicles. I will link that playlist up above so you can check that out if you're interested, but it's just kind of my journey through reading his books, my thoughts on each book. Each of the videos are very much spoiler filled, so if you haven't read those books, then I don't recommend watching them. But in each video, I kind of go over my thoughts on the book, a very, very brief plot synopsis, some of the themes that I notice, and my favorite part are the connections throughout the Stephen King universe. So I have already been talking too much. Let's just go ahead and jump into the books. I will not be giving plot synopsis for these books, but I will be letting you know if I read them, you know, maybe some history behind the book itself or how I acquired it, that kind of thing. So also, in case I failed to mention, because at this point I don't remember if I've already said this or not, I will be going in publication order for this instead of just picking them up off my shelves all willy-nilly. It is going to make it a little bit more difficult to actually pull them because I'm just going to be kind of pulling them as I go. If there's a particular book that you're looking for, then, you know, you can kind of slide through and figure out where it's going to be based on when it was published. So we all know the very first published work of Stephen King is Carrie. This is the beautiful ring light glare on this. It does have a protective cover on this book. This is not a first edition, but it is one of the older editions. I did very much enjoy this book. I feel like if you're new to Stephen King, this is a good place to start. I do have a separate video on that you can check out. And then I also have this mass market paperback edition. This is the one that I actually physically read for the video that I did. You can see where I went through and tabbed it up. Salem's Lot, second published work. This is by far my favorite Stephen King book that I have read up until this point. But this is the original cover design. I absolutely love this book. It is a wonderful slow burn. While it is about vampires, I think it's about a lot more than that personally, and one of the best characters that Stephen King ever wrote was the town itself of Salem's Lot. So I very much enjoyed doing the video and making the notes for this book. This is the mass market that I have of that. Once again, went through, did a lot of tabbing for that particular video. I actually really like this mass market. So next up we have The Shining. So when we look at this cover, this is technically the original cover that was published. However, this is a very new printing of this book and a very new printing of this dust jacket. Whenever I went through and found it on eBay, I think, the reason that I know that it is a very new printing of this book, number one, there's nothing on like the dust jacket really at all. Definitely not a first printing. It's pretty much in pristine condition. And then the other reason that I know it's not anywhere close to a first edition is because you see this right here in most of the other books. So like the edition of Carrie and Salem's Lot that I had, as well as some other editions that you'll see, this right here, rather than cardboard, is actually like cloth bound. And so that's how I know that. Good thing I did not pay a lot of money for this, but I wanted the original cover. It is very hard to find the original cover, and especially first edition. I'm sure if I thrifted more, or if I had a place to thrift more, maybe I could come across one, but thanks eBay. I also do have a mass market paperback of this one. I didn't end up tabbing this one, but it is matching to the Salem's Lot cover that I have as well. Next, we have the Bachman books. This is the bind up that I have. So technically, the next of his published works was Rage under his pseudonym Richard Bachman. And unfortunately, you cannot buy that anymore. It has fallen out of print. I think that sometimes you can find like French editions on eBay for insane amounts of money, but you can still find the book itself in these Bachman book bind ups. So I did manage to snag this one, pretty sure off of eBay as well. It's in decent shape. It's not the best shape. Not only does this have Rage in it, but it does have Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, and The Running Man. Next up, we have Night Shift, which is his first short story collection. And I actually have 3 editions of this one. First, I have my little mass market paperback that I used for the video. I do have several of this particular type of mass market. And then I have our original book club edition version of Night Shift. So was really happy to get my hands on this one, as well as this. I actually saw this on eBay and forgot that I had this one right here, and so I snagged this one as well. Next up, we have The Stand, and unfortunately, both of the editions that I own, here's my mass market paperback, these are the complete and uncut editions. These weren't actually published until I believe the early 90s, 90 or 91. I do not have an edition of the original 800 page The Stand. 600, 800, I can't remember off the top of my head. As you can see, it's a tome. This is another one that I got off eBay, I think. So this is one of my favorite books of his. It is very long, but it is an excellent, excellent book. Next up, we have The Long Walk, which is once again bound up in the Bachman books, but I'm not gonna pull that back out. I do have 2 separate mass market paperbacks. I have this little bitty one. This I remember getting at either Walmart or like B. Dalton or something. I also know that when I originally read this book, I did not care for it all that much. I think it was a little bit too deep for me at the time that I first read it. I was a teenager. I did start reading Stephen King in 7th grade. Worked my way through a lot of his books as a teenager, and I still have a lot more to read, which is why I'm going through and rereading them in publication order. And then I also have this edition. This is the one that I read the last time, and I really, really enjoyed these covers. I have several of these. I wish that all of them came in covers like these. I did really, really enjoy this book the second time around. This is much less in the way of supernatural horror. It is very real world, kind of like dystopian. I very much enjoyed that, and this is one that I see a lot of mixed reviews on too. People either really love it or they don't. Next up, we have The Dead Zone, and I really loved this one. This one has officially made it into my top 10 Kings. When you're reading the books in publication order, this is one of the books that we really first saw a more character-driven story than we have in books before this. I really loved Johnny's character and his arc as we go through the book, and really just what it had to say. I really loved the writing style in this as well. And then I have this little mass market paperback with stuff from the movie. There's like some movie pictures and stuff in it. I haven't seen the movie. I really do need to watch it though, especially because I love the book so much. Next, we have Firestarter. This is a book club edition that is unfortunately not in very good shape. Again, this has a movie to go with it. Haven't seen it. And then I have the little mass market. Again, the hardcovers that I have, in case I haven't mentioned this, are more for collectors' reasons. I have mass markets in most of the other books, you know, to actually like read and handle and stuff. So, especially since as I'm going through, I'm making a lot of notes and tabbing and sticky noting and that kind of thing. So that's what I use the mass markets for. This one I just picked up on like thrift books, I think it is. You know, I managed to find them for like $5 because I don't care how beat up they are, really. So. Next book that was published was Road Work, which is once again a Bachman book. I do have that in the bind up. I do not have a mass market copy of that. I swear I thought I did, but I guess I was wrong about that one. So this is another one that I haven't read, but I have seen some pretty mixed things about it. It seems to me if you're reading Stephen King, you either really enjoy or you don't like the Bachman books. I'll be interested whenever I get to that one to see how I feel. Next on the list, we have Cujo, and this I think was the second King that I ever read, and it honestly terrified me because dogs. I'm not a huge fan of dogs. I've never actually owned a dog, so I also just really love this back picture. That's one of the things that I really love about the hardcovers. A lot of them have like the really large author photos, and you can actually kind of figure out when each book was published based on the author photo. So this one is actually like almost feels brand new. It's like somebody bought it and then it stayed in someone's library and then they did like an estate sale or something. I don't know. There's a couple of dings and scratches on it, but for the most part it's in really good shape. And then I just have the mass market. Again, got this one off Thrift Books for like probably less than $5. Next is The Running Man. This is another one that I don't have. Once again, bound up in the Bachman books, but don't have a physical paperback for that. The Gunslinger, which is book number 1 in the Dark Tower series. This is by far my favorite series of all time, not counting children's series. If we're talking about children's series, then that goes to the Chronicles of Narnia. Can you believe I didn't say Harry Potter? I love this series so much. This book is the one that gets the most hate in the series, honestly, and that just has to do with when it was published. And I think that when he wrote it, he didn't really have an idea of what the series was going to be. I think that it was very vague at that point, and so it does very much drag at points. But if you can make it through this and get to the Drawing of the Three, like, it's over, because Drawing of the Three is probably one of my favorites out of the whole series. And I also have the paperback version of this as a well illustrated version. So we have different seasons. This is a novella collection. I wouldn't even call this short stories. Each season is represented by a different novella. In this, you have Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption. Loved that one. Apt Pupil, The Body, which is what they based the movie Stand By Me on, which is an excellent film and also an excellent story. And then Breathing Method. The Breathing Method is the last one, and I honestly don't remember what that one is about, to be completely honest. So looking forward to rereading that one. And then we have another one of the little mass markets that match some of the other ones that I have, and it doesn't look like I got very far on this because I never broke the spine. So also, I really love the back picture on this. That's such a cute picture. Christine, this edition I managed, I think I snagged this on like a used bookstore Instagram or something, but this is in rough shape. This is in extremely rough shape. And it is actually, I never opened it. It's a book club edition, but it's actually an ex-library edition, apparently. The ex-library Friends of Lake County Public Library. I don't know where that's at. This one I listened to on audio for the first time last year and really, really liked it. If you have the opportunity to listen to the audio, I highly suggest it because it is very well done. And then I have one of these editions for my reread. I personally really enjoy this particular edition. Next, we have Cycle of the Werewolf. This is one that I don't think that you can actually find in hardcover. If you can, I haven't been able to find it yet, but I did manage to snag this, I think on eBay for like really cheap, and it is illustrated as well. So Pet Sematary, this is the very first Stephen King book that I ever read because I ran out of my own books and I raided my mom's bookshelf, and I haven't read it since the very first time that I read it, and so it's definitely going to be an interesting experience rereading it again, but I know that this book is very well loved in his library, so I am definitely looking forward to it. This edition that I own is not a first edition, but it is one of the first printings, and then I have the mass market that matches my Salem's Lot and The Shining. Apparently there was a mass market that also matched this with Carrie that I have been searching for and have yet been unable to find. So Eyes of the Dragon, I've read this one I think at least on 2 separate occasions. I reread the Dark Tower series in 2016, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 2016, maybe. I can't remember. Pretty sure it was 2016, and it put me in such a massive slump, and so I went out of my way to try and find things that connected to the Dark Tower universe. If you are familiar with the story at all, you know that it does connect with the Dark Tower universe, and I listened to the audio, and I did very much enjoy the audio. The story as a whole isn't the greatest, and it is geared more towards fantasy than actual horror. There are, you know, some moments, but for the most part, it is definitely more in the vein of fantasy. And then I have this mass market that was actually my mother's. A lot of the older mass markets that I have are actually hers. So thanks, Mom. Next, we have The Talisman, and this is connected also with the Dark Tower universe. This is also co-written with Peter Straub. As of filming this video, I have not read anything else by Peter Straub. I only have experience in reading his writing with King's. So, but I did really enjoy the story, and I actually read this out of order. Black House, which was published several years after this and was the sequel to The Talisman, I read before I ever knew that this existed. So I am very much looking forward to actually reading them in the correct order. Next we have Thinner, which is another Bachman book that I have not read yet. I know that this was a movie too, I'm pretty sure. Never saw it, about a man who gets cursed, so that should be interesting. I am interested to read this simply because I know that Bachman usually deals with more real world horror versus like anything supernatural, and I know that this does have more of like a supernatural element to it. And then I have this Mass Market. I really actually like that one. I don't know why I like it so much. Next is Skeleton Crew, which is another short story collection. I have the matching Mass Market of this from my mother, and this was another one of the first collections that I read. And so for that reason, I remember really liking a lot of the stories. This is the collection that houses The Mist. I believe The Raft is in here, which is another one that I really enjoyed. But I know that as a whole, this particular collection doesn't get a whole lot of love. So I'm really interested to see what I think on reread. So next is It. You could knock someone out with this. I am currently on the hunt for an older edition, though I do own this new one. I believe that this was republished in hardcover after they announced the 2017 reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it, of the film, which I personally really enjoyed. And I did very much enjoy the book. I read it years and years ago with this copy, and I had totally forgotten about the very end of the book. And if you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I'm sorry. I had forgotten about that. And so when I reread it in 2017, I was like, oh, totally forgot about all this. But I am on the hunt for an older edition of the hardback. And I actually will probably reread it again when part 2 is released for the film. We have Drawing of the Three, and this is the only copy of this that I own. Unfortunately, it has been extremely hard for me to find hardcover editions of some of the earlier Dark Tower books. I have not been able to come across the one that is affordable yet, though I have been searching high and low. So this in particular is an older paperback edition that I got from a used bookstore on Instagram. This is one of my favorites of the whole series. In this book, we really, number one, we meet the rest of the characters that are going to be with us on our journey through the Dark Tower series, as well as we really get a little bit more of a sense of Roland and what he's like. And so once again, if you have read The Gunslinger and have not gone through the rest of the series, for whatever reason, I really need you to at least pick this one up and then make your judgment from there. I don't think that it's fair to base the whole series just based on The Gunslinger, because this is so much better. Next is Misery. This is probably one of his most well-known books, and believe it or not, I haven't read it yet. Allegedly, this is one of the best ones to start with. Also, can we talk about how much I love this author picture? This is probably my favorite author picture that he has done. I just love it so much. But once again, this is one of the most iconic of his books, and so I'm looking forward to getting to it. Next up, we have The Tommyknockers. I actually have 3 editions of this one. So I have my hardcover, right? Let's do this because this is a lot to hold. You have our hardcover over there. And then we have our newer paperback edition. I really enjoyed this cover. And then we have the old Mass Market, which I need to be careful with because it's coming apart. This was also my mom's, and this was the first copy that I ever read. It's not his best. It's okay, but it's not his best. Also, it's super long, and I listened to the audio in conjunction with this, which made me get through it really quickly, and the audio is pretty well done. So if you don't like big books or are intimidated by big books, then I would suggest you pick up the audio. This is more along the lines of science fiction because it does deal with some alien stuff. And again, just not his strongest. It's not bad, like, let me be clear about that. It's not bad, but it's just not his strongest book in my opinion. So next up, we have The Dark Half. This is another one that I have not read. Oh wait, I do have another copy of this. Yeah, I couldn't really tell you what this one is about, to be completely honest. So yeah, I don't know. Be interested to see. You know, it's one that I couldn't tell you anything about, and it's one that I don't hear very much about. Next, we have 4 Past Midnight. Again, one of the little matching mass markets that I have. This is another collection of 4 novellas. This has The Langoliers, Secret Window, and I can't remember the other 2 because I think that I have seen the films for both The Langoliers and Secret Window, but I don't think that I've ever read this. So if I have, I don't remember it. So that's a thing. Next is the 3rd installment in the Dark Tower series, The Wastelands. Again, this is another one that I very much enjoyed. This is another that is illustrated, and I love that. And unfortunately, this is another that I haven't been able to find the hardcover edition yet. So Needful Things. And once again, this is one that I have not actually read yet. However, I am really excited to get to it. I did just go through and watch Castle Rock from Hulu, which is based in Castle Rock, which is where this takes place. Alan Pangborn is in it, in the Hulu series as well as in this, I'm pretty sure. So I am really excited to actually see some of that stuff. So next is Gerald's Game. This is the only thing that I know about this is this deals with a woman who, you know, goes to a cabin during the eclipse for some sexy time with her husband, and he croaks while she is handcuffed to a bed. That's all I know. I do know that this was made into, I believe, a movie on Netflix, and I heard that it was pretty gruesome at some points. Haven't seen it yet. Looking forward to it. And here we have another one of these mass markets. One of the things that I really love about this edition, first of all, whoever I bought this from taped down the dust jacket, and I'm mad about it, but it is what it is. But one of the things that I really love about this are the end pages. Like, look at how beautiful that is. I love it. That's also one that seems to be like hit or miss. People either really love it or they really don't. And next we have Dolores Claiborne, and this is one that I haven't actually read yet again, but I do hear wonderful things about Dolores Claiborne as a character. And actually I watched a video not that long ago from someone on BookTube said that this is one of his favorite Stephen King female characters of all time. So I'm really interested to read this one. And also this one also has the beautiful end pages as well. So this is why, like, this is a mess, but I just don't have the mental fortitude to, like, stack and restack and stack and restack to, like, maintain this beautiful illusion of beautifulness. I just don't have it in me. So next is Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which here's my mass market, which once again, and this was published right whenever they did the mini series on TNT. When I don't think that TNT exists anymore. I think that it's something else now. But I remember when it came out. And then I have the hardcover version here, which does have a protective cover on it. And once again, this is a short story collection that I haven't read yet. Yeah, I'm like going through the contents and I haven't read this yet. I really thought that I had, but I haven't. So yes. Next up is Insomnia, which is another super giant one, and I did read this one right after I finished the Dark Tower series because this does have a very slight Dark Tower connection to it. And again, we have our mass market paperback here. I'm not a huge fan of this particular cover, but I did enjoy this book as a whole. I really like Ralph, and I really liked several other different things about this book. I was gonna say something, but it'd be a little spoilery, so I guess I won't. It doesn't make it up there with one of my favorites, but I liked it. Rose Matter, I do not have a paperback of this, but it's another one that I haven't read, and I'm pretty sure that this is another one that has to do with domestic abuse, perhaps. I have heard it does have a very nice illustration at the front. I've been a little apprehensive to read this one just because I know that it does deal with like domestic abuse, I'm pretty sure, but I also hear that it's really good. So we'll see how I feel when I get to it. Next up, we have The Green Mile, and this is definitely in my top 10 favorite King books, and not to mention the movie was also very excellently done. The Green Mile was originally published as like serial novelettes or novellas or whatever. I believe that it was 5 or 6 of them. I do not have those copies. I just have the bind-ups together of the mass market, and then after they bound it all up into this. This is not in the best shape. I believe that I, again, got this off of a used bookstore online, and it's, again, not in good shape. There's like some damage along the bottom, like coffee stain or something, but I do very much like the cover. The next two I am actually going to do together, and that is Desperation and The Regulators. Regulators was published under Richard Bachman, and it was published at a time where everybody knew that he was Bachman. And they are two stories that do relate very closely together. The reason that I'm doing them together is because of the covers. They actually do kind of go together. So, but when you put them together, I just think that that's the shit. I absolutely love that cover design. And I remember actually really liking both of these, however, they don't get a whole lot of love. Another thing that I really enjoy is on the back cover, you can see this cover here, and same thing with this one here. So I just thought that that was really, really clever. Next is the fourth installment in the Dark Tower series, which is Wizard and Glass. I only have my sad little mass market here for this one. This is another one that I haven't been able to track down. This is one of the most emotionally exhausting books that I have ever read in my entire life, and I remember just being absolutely devastated and drained whenever I finished it the last time. But it is so excellently done, and it is definitely among my favorites in the Dark Tower series, for sure. Next up is Bag of Bones. Haven't read this, did watch the series that they did on some channel. I think maybe that was like a TNT thing too. This is a haunted love story. The only thing that I remember about the story is that Pierce Brosnan, who played the main guy in this, was such a bitch. It was not a good look for Pierce Brosnan. That's all I got to say. But other than that, I don't really remember very much about the storyline. So I'm interested to see what I think when I get to it. Next is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This one is very, very short. I remember reading this and absolutely loving it. There was a certain scene in this that I still think about to this day. It's basically about a young girl who gets lost in the woods, and really one of the only things that keeps her going is she listens to a baseball game on her portable radio. But I remember really liking this, so I'm interested to see if this will hold up, because again, this was one of them. This is my mom's mass market, so this is one of them that I did read a very long time ago. So next up, we have Hearts in Atlantis. This is another collection of novellas, but I believe that they are all related in some way. If I remember correctly, I did read this years and years ago, and I do know that this is Dark Tower related, and I read this before I had read the Dark Tower series, so I am really looking forward to the reread when I can really like go through and see all of those connections. Next up is Storm of the Century. I have never seen Storm of the Century, but I've heard excellent things about it, and then I hear excellent things about this too. This is supposed to be one of his best, so I'm really, really looking forward to this. Next up is Dreamcatcher, and this book is not great. The only thing that you need to know about this book is ass weasels. So literally the only thing that you need to know. I really do very much enjoy this cover. I think that it's very pretty. This edition that I have came water damaged. I bought it off a used bookstore, and they said that it was in excellent condition, and it's not, so I'm a little perturbed about that because it's literally like bent. So I'll be replacing this at some point. I read this when the mass market came out, and I am very interested to see how I feel upon the reread of this, because I do know that the movie was also like absolute garbage. And this, I think that this is probably one of my least favorite Kings that I have actually read up until this point. But I believe that I was also in high school whenever I read this. 2001. So I was definitely in high school. Middle school, high school, whenever I read this. And so I, becoming a better reader, a more critical reader, I'm really interested to see how I feel about this one. Black House, and this is the sequel to The Talisman, written with Peter Straub. I loved this book. It has been many years since I read it, but I remember absolutely adoring this book. There is a passage at the very beginning that I, at the time, whenever I was reading it for the first time, had to read to my then boyfriend, now husband, because I just absolutely fell in love with the way that it was written. And so I very much look forward to my reread of this book. Once again, Dark Tower universe, and I'm really excited to reread this one. Next is Everything's Eventual. This is another short story collection, 14 Dark Tales. Honestly, this is one of my favorite short story collections, and this one doesn't really get a lot of love. One of the reasons that I love this so much is because I remember going and buying it whenever it came out. Well, actually, I believe that one of my aunts or my grandmother bought it for me because when they wanted to give me gifts, I had them get books. Dirty and it's well loved. And in high school, I don't remember if it was an extra credit assignment or just like an assignment that we had to go through and teach a short story and pull literary devices out of it. And I chose The Man in the Black Suit from this short story collection. To this day, it's one of my favorite short story collections of all time. And that's one of my favorite short stories because I love it. And I think that the reason that I love it so much is because it does give me such a feeling of nostalgia. So I reread it a couple of years ago, and as I continue to read more of his work, I'm really interested to see, how I feel like it holds up. From a Buick Gate, I don't know anything about this. I don't think that it's gotten a whole lot of love. I think that it might be like another killer car thing like Christine, but I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see. Next, we have Wolves of the Kala, which is number 5 in the Dark Tower series. I enjoyed this one. It's not my favorite of the series, but I did enjoy it because I loved this series as a whole. Obviously, it is super, super long, but I still really enjoyed it. It's one of the only Dark Towers that I've been able to find in hardcover, probably because of when they were published. These, the last 3 in the series were published consecutively after many, many years of not finishing it. So there's this one. And then we have Song of Susanna, totally different editions. This one doesn't match any of the other paperback editions that I have, but I do really enjoy that cover. I like the brightness of it. One of the other things that I very much enjoy about this particular edition is the inside cover pages. Absolutely loved those. And then one of the things that I did actually forget to show from Wolves of the Kala too is that it also does have the pretty illustrated end pages. This one is not my favorite in the series again, but it's not terrible. And then of course, the very last in the series, once again, absolutely beautiful end pages as well as illustrations. Love this book so much. And I love the cover. I love everything about this book. I love everything about the series. I do enjoy the paperback version as well, but obviously love this book and I love this series so much. Next up we have Cell. I hear that this one sucks, honestly. So I don't know. I haven't read it, so I can't speak to it. Oh God, the inside flap, I forgot about this, says there's a reason Cell rhymes with hell. If that's any indication of what that's gonna be like, that's gonna be real interesting. Next is Lissy's Story, and I am so excited to read this one. A couple of people, Cody in particular, this is one of his all-time favorite Stephen King books, and so, and I also, from my understanding, it's kind of like a love letter to his wife. So obviously I've heard, like really good things about it. Let's talk about how beautiful this naked book is. Like, I'm trying to get the glare. So sorry for the glare from the ring light, but look at how beautiful that is. One of the most beautiful naked hardbacks that I own. Next is Blaze, and once again, I don't know anything about this. I just know it's a Bachman book. And I think that I've heard good things about this. I don't really remember, I'm gonna be honest. Next is Do McKee. And I personally feel like this one is tragically underrated. There are a couple of people that I talk to that love this book as much as I do, but I really, really loved this book whenever I read it. It's a book that I still think about pretty frequently, actually. So I am really, really looking forward to my reread of this. I hope that it holds up. Next is Just After Sunset. I really do love this reflective cover. Another short story collection that I haven't read. Don't really know very much about it. So we'll see how I feel when I get to it. Next is Under the Dome. This is the softcover edition. This is the hardcover edition. I have read roughly half of this book and then I stopped reading it and I don't remember why. I think that I just went into a really big slump. I have seen the first 2 seasons of the show and I did very much enjoy the show, but I really want to read the whole book because I hear that it's not that great. The ending's not that great. Next is Blockade Billy, obviously a little novella. I've read this, but I don't remember what it's about, so I really need to reread it. I know it's about baseball, that's all I really know. Next is Full Dark No Stars. This is another short story collection. There are 4 novellas within this book, and boy oh boy, when it says Full Dark No Stars, these are very, very dark stories. However, despite how dark they are, I did very much enjoy them. This has 1922 in it, which Netflix made into a movie. Big Driver, which was made into a series, I think, on Lifetime. And A Good Marriage, which was, I think, also made either into a miniseries or a movie on Netflix too. I saw 1922, it was pretty good. Haven't seen the other 2. Next is 11/22/63, and I read this book last year and I absolutely loved it. 100% makes my top 10 favorite Stephen King books ever. Definitely more along science fiction, but the story in this book and Jake/George and Sadie just melt my heart. Like, I love them so much, and I read through this and I wasn't expecting to have the amount of feelings that I did when I got to the end, but I really, really loved this book. The Wind Through the Keyhole, which is like right in the middle of the Dark Tower series but was published like way after. It's just kind of a little side story. I personally read this after I had finished the whole Dark Tower series. I read it in publication order, and I remember really liking this. It was a really nice way to kind of revisit our quartet from the Dark Tower series, so I very much enjoyed it. Joyland, which is another hard case crime series edition, and I don't know anything about this. I know that I haven't read it, but it is illustrated, so I've heard good things about it. Excited to read it. Next up, we have Dr. Sleep. This is a long-awaited sequel to The Shining. This follows adult Danny Torrance, and I read this when it came out, and I honestly don't remember very much else about it. So I am interested to see how I feel about it, because I do see people that say that they like this more than they like The Shining, and I just don't know how that's possible. Next up, we have Mr. Mercedes. This is the first in the Bill Hodges trilogy. This is definitely more of like a murder mystery type style than King usually does. I actually do have a full review / thoughts of the entire series. I will go ahead and link that up above so you can check that out if you are so inclined. I enjoyed the series as a whole, but I do feel like it was a little bit inconsistent for a couple of different reasons, but I did very much enjoy the characters. So it will be years before I finish all of these books, so interested to see how I'll feel on a reread. And I'm kind of going out of order, but since I have them right here, I figure I'll go ahead and go over them. Number 2 in the series, which is Finders Keepers. This to me was probably the weakest of the 3, and then we have End of Watch, which is the 3rd in the series. Next is Revival, and I really hear mixed things about this. I know that it deals with like religion and stuff, and that's all I can really tell you about it. So it is a very, very shiny cover. And actually, I hate this cover. There is a cover, like the UK cover is so much better than this one. Next is Bizarre Bad Dreams. I very much enjoy this cover, but this is another short story collection. Haven't read it, and I hear mixed things, actually. No, actually, I don't even hear mixed things. I hear that this one isn't very good, so. Next, we have Gwendy's Button Box. This was written with Richard Chizmar. I can never remember how to say his name, but I very much enjoyed this one. Really short novella, but it was pretty impactful, and I really liked the story, and I really like the cover too. Next up, we have Sleeping Beauties. I didn't like this. Much more political than I thought that it was going to be. I like the cover. The UK edition cover was a lot better, but as far as a story, you see how long it is. It 100% could have been cut down way shorter than it actually was. And I mean, just in general, I just didn't feel like the story was very strong. And I honestly felt like it was very clear that there were 2 different writers. You know, obviously he's writing with his son here. So it needed more editing, I feel like. And then the story itself wasn't very strong, so. And as of the filming of this video, this is the very last book that I have that he has published, and that is The Outsider. This did come out earlier this year. We do see a recurring character from the Bill Hodges trilogy in this book, and I loved this book. Gave it 5 stars. There were so many things that I really loved about it. And after reading Sleeping Beauties, I wasn't really sure how I was gonna feel about this book, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Very excellently done. If you haven't read this yet, do not read it until you read the Bill Hodges trilogy, because you are spoiled for certain plot points within that. However, if you don't care about that, then by all means go ahead and read it. But I thought that this was very excellently done. All right, so that is my Stephen King book collection, what I've read, what I haven't read, how I felt about them. What are your favorite Stephen King books? If you made it to the end of this video, like if you did, that's awesome. So tell me what your favorite and least favorite Stephen King books are down in the comments below. Once again, if you are new here and you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click thumbs up and hit subscribe if you have not already. Also, all of my social media links can be found in the down bar below. You can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.